seems to be addressing that particular cost. We do know, for example, in the state, that when the unemployment insurance, when we cut unemployment so that people did not have to contribute, and we had this downturn, we ended up with having to raise unemployment rates, though that wasn't our intent, was to have everyone pay $1,000. But when we cut it down to practically nothing, the differential had to be made up. So I think what we need to do is we need to ensure that whatever pieces of legislations are done, that we never lose sight of the fact that small business is the backbone of our economy. And we must ensure that we do everything to not hinder them. And in the event like unemployment insurance or health care, and it looks like that's causing a major cost, we must be able to find a way to subsidize them with bearing in mind that we do a program that is budget neutral, deficit.
I've been a proud person to serve as a director of Smart Business Hawaii since I was involuntarily retired from Washington the last time, along with Colleen's friend Sam Sloan, and I've learned many great things from Sam along the way. Everything we've talked about, of course, impacts small business. Small business is not different from big business, is not different from a family, is not different from government. You've got to have a reasonable level and a balance between revenues and expenses. So if your taxation is too high, you're going to suffer. And that hits small business disproportionately. If your regulations are too high, you're going to suffer. And that hits small business disproportionately because a large business has the ability to get people in-house or to act collectively with other large businesses to handle regulation. A small business, depending on your definition, can't get to the critical mass to say, hey, you're in charge of federal regulations. And so the federal regulations really hurt small business. And when I was serving on the Small Business Committee during my time in Congress, that was one of the principal issues that small business had, was federal regulations. Of course, taxation was big, but federal regulations that just kind of went on without sunsetting, without being reviewed, was a real problem. And so one of the specific things we can do is more sunsetting of federal regulations. You got to come along every once in a while and just fight all over again and see what the actual impact is. Access to federal procurement is a big issue for small businesses. Here in Hawaii, of course, we have federal business through the military and otherwise. Big business eats small business alive when it comes to federal procurement. They circumvent the rules that are meant to assure that small business gets a share of the pie in many different ways. They work the Department of Defense very, very well. That needs an advocacy role in Congress. I think also in terms of export industries, when we have good relationships with other countries in our neighborhood, especially in the region, we facilitate the ability of our small businesses, such as agriculture, such as some of the products that we produce here, clothing, to export to those countries. So don't forget that foreign policy also has a major trickle-down or trickle-over role to what we actually do right here to help our small businesses.
I understand small business. What I want to convey to all of you here is I get many of you, those of you here who are entrepreneurs. Here in this room today, we have Chinese Chamber of Commerce, Japanese Chamber of Commerce, and realtors. I know a lot of you here are small business owners. I want to take those of you who have started your own small business back to ask you, the time you made the decision to create your own small business, how did you go through your decision-making process? How did you make that decision to quit a full-time job, to start your own and open up your own storefront? How did you make that decision to leave that safe job with a safe weekly paycheck and decide, I'm going to be a realtor full-time? Well, you go through it, you figure out how much your sales are going to be, but you also go through a calculus to try and figure out how much your expenses are going to be. Not just expenses such as rent or how many employees I need to hire, but I know for each and every one of you here in this room right now who are entrepreneurs and small business owners, you put into that calculus, how much is the government going to take from me and how much fees am I going to have to pay? If you want to stimulate small businesses, you have got to get those two things down, because you have to encourage individuals to go out there and take risks, take a chance to start a small business. That's why I support three things. Number one, yes, we need to expand free trade. I am disappointed the United States Congress has not passed a free trade agreement with South Korea, because that expands opportunities for all of you as entrepreneurs to sell more of your goods overseas. Second, I support keeping, and actually I support reducing the capital gains tax rate. Because the capital gains tax rate for all of you as entrepreneurs here is a critical decision-making process you have to make as to whether or not you one day may be able to sell your business sometime in the future. And third, I support eliminating the estate tax. Those of you who own your own small businesses right now are probably going through a calculus as to whether or not you can pass this along to your children. And eliminating the estate tax will help you toward that end. These are the proposals that will help grow small businesses in our community.
We have 2 questions remaining before our closing remarks, and the rotation this time will be from Ed to Charles and then back to Pauline. And the question: do you support the government bailout of American auto manufacturers, and why?
Let's again be clear about what we're talking about. We actually saw 2 large stimulus packages that were enacted. So let's not be partisan about this. The first was during President Bush's watch, and the second was the more recent stimulus package. We forget that we saw the first one. So sometimes I ask the question, well, if you didn't like the second one, did you also not like the first one? I mean, what was different between the 2? Did we have to respond or not? I believe that our economy was in free fall. I believe that if government, going back to the role of government, did not step in for us collectively, that we would see a far worse situation. A far worse situation. Not just in our state, not just in our country, but in our world. It's the interactivity between our economy and the world economy. You're not the biggest economy in the world without having an impact overseas. And I believe that this was incredibly messy, incredibly problematic. You could pick it apart all kinds of ways in terms of what was fair and not fair. Did some people get breaks that they shouldn't have gotten? Yes. Did some companies get rewarded or bailed out for bad, risky decisions? Absolutely. But did that mean that we should just walk away from the auto manufacturers, from Michigan, from exporting overseas? Did that mean we should walk away from all of our banking and finance? Did that mean we should walk away from all of our companies and individuals? I didn't think so, because it wasn't in the abstract thing we wanted to do, but it was something we had to do. The question is always, what are your practical options? You have to make a decision in the times in which you are dealing with, not in some academic, simplistic world. Yes, I thought we needed to do that. I didn't like it, but I thought it had to be done.
The basic question I think all of you should ask yourselves, and again, I go back to here, because we have Japanese and Chinese Chamber of Commerce and realtors here. The basic question I want to ask each and every one of you is that in your small business, if your small business collapsed, do you believe the United States Congress would bail you out? It's not supposed to be that funny. You know, I take the position in a belief in limited government. I have advocated here this afternoon in lower taxes, because I do believe that when you're an entrepreneur and you're taking risks, you should be allowed to keep the gains and reap the rewards that you took the risks for. But I also believe that if you go out there and invest and take risks, and you should be able to keep the rewards that you invested your blood, sweat, and tears in creating your business, you also, when you fail, should not come and ask the taxpayers to bail you out and use the taxpayers' money. It has to work both ways. One of the things that I think is wrong in the United States and what our Congress is doing right now is that General Motors and Chrysler are owned by the American taxpayer right now. And I am very much troubled that the decision on who to select as CEO of GM and Chrysler is not made by a board of directors or a group of investors risking their capital. Those decisions are being made by the United States government. That is not what strengthens and what has made our nation great. And that is why I believe the decision to bail out General Motors and Chrysler was the wrong decision and should not have been made. Thank you.